for the training session. And as you know, from our team, we have Mehak and Akshit from the sales and marketing team. And we also have Deepak Batra, the founder of Arcturus Technologies. So he will be the one taking us through today's training session. And we'd love to make this session interactive. So feel free to ask any questions or any doubt in the chat box there, or you can directly ask them as well, making sure you're not interrupting. And I'd request Deepak to take it from here and this through the entire training session.
Please mute yourself if you are not, asking a question. Please mute yourself. And I would say, keep the videos off for everyone. That way, there's no distraction in the training. So Akshit, we will mute everybody, and we will unmute as you guys can unmute as needed. That way, there is no unnecessary, conversations which everybody is hearing and so on.
Yeah,
so,
in case anyone,
please manage that.
yes, I can. In case you have any questions, then you can go ahead and write them in the chat, and we'll address them accordingly.
So thank you guys for taking the time to join. My name is Deepak. I am just, give me 1 sec. I need to, okay. I would just strongly suggest everybody to turn their videos off so there is no distraction. And there are some videos showing up on the, I would say, please look at that. You don't want to be, you're probably showing things like videos by mistake. Turn those off. That way we can just focus on the training aspects. Again, my name is Deepak, and I am the founder of Arcturus Technologies. I'll be your guide for the next couple of hours. I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. We'll talk about how do we streamline application performance management and troubleshooting of applications, getting the right performance, ensuring the applications scale well, and ensuring your applications are available as and when they are expected to be available. So we do that with AppLicare. We'll talk about that very shortly. We'd love to hear your experiences in this training, and we have worked with Isha Training to put this session together. They have many of you guys are coming through Isha Training, so we really appreciate all the efforts they have put into in bringing this session together. And the recording of this will be available to you at the end of it. We'll have the hands-on session. So we will. Let me just go through the couple of slides here I have. So just a quick copyright notice. This is not to be distributed without the written permission and so on. And our agenda is we're going to talk a little bit about the application performance management, overall state of the industry, and then we'll get into the hands-on part. So we'll have an environment for you guys where you would be creating an instance, a VM on the AWS, and using AppLicare image that'll have AppLicare available to you and a sample application available to you. And we'll dive into playing with that sample application, playing with AppLicare, and we'll go over the various concepts within AppLicare. What is Intellitrace? How does Intellitrace work? What are business transactions? How do business transactions work? And how it benefits you. The most important part is how does it make a difference in my life. You know, I am talking about as an administrator. Our goal is um, to simplify problem detection. Our goal has been to simplify problem detection, and that's what we'll do in this session. We'll show you how does Applicare do that for you. So that's just a quick overview of the what our agenda is. Let me walk you into a couple of slides here on how we came in existence and so on. So that's like what were the founding principle for Applicare, and then we'll take you into the demonstration of the product, and we'll talk more on that. So yeah, please keep yourself muted, but do put the questions in the chat. I'll try to address them ASAP as soon as possible, and hopefully we'll have more interactive session at the end of it. So what we saw in the industry was that the people were finding out of the problems with the symptoms. So if one gets into an ambulance and that's when they start doing the triage, it's not a good thing at that point. I mean, they may not get another chance. So we wanted to address this scenario. And we also saw that the root cause analysis process was very people dependent. So when the problems were occurring, right people needed to be available to do the root cause analysis. And that was a problem because the people who were good in troubleshooting, they were left with no life. I mean, you guys, some of you guys probably in that state. I mean, it's good to be wanted, but it's not good to be wanted to that extent where you can't leave your seat. So those were the kind of very foundational requirements for building Applicare. And I'm going to take you guys into my past life uh, and give you where I'm coming from. I was working for WebLogic Professional Services Organization, and I was one of this doctor who was almost every week at a new customer doing troubleshooting. So what I encountered was that it was a very cumbersome process. Although I got very good at it, but still I needed to be in a 40-hour week. I needed to do so many troubleshootings, and um, to do it the right way, I needed the right amount of time, which I never could get. So I was rushing things. So I saw the room for automation, and that's where Applicare originated from. So basically, I saw that I need to automate my own job. Rather than manually doing troubleshooting, we need to have a system which will do the troubleshooting, and that's where Applicare originated from. So rather than reacting to the problems when they have already caused the damage, and then having the people who need to do the root cause analysis, waking them up or having them available on a 24/7 basis, both those approaches were very reactive and very expensive. And it's still very true without the proper without the proper tools, without Applicare. I mean, if you're trying to do it manually, it's a nightmare. And it is a very reactive process. If your customers are telling you that your site is down or your application is not working, that's a pretty bad situation to be in. And you want to avoid that. And that's what we did with Applicare. So we looked at what do we do as individuals, like as experts in the industry. What do we do when we go to the new customer? We had very little time to be able to solve their problems, but we were able to solve those problems. So what we did is we looked at how our system, like what do we do at the customers? We apply our expertise onto the systems, and we were able to solve their problems. So that's what we built into AppliCare at the very foundation. We built an expert system foundation where the tool is doing the checks which Deepak would have done otherwise. So whenever I went to a customer, I would look for, have you done the configuration right? Whatever, 100-point scans, 1,000-point scans. So I was always applying my knowledge onto the environment, and I was always trying to find the holes where there are problems. And we always did that based on what the symptoms were. So if somebody is not able to, some application is not able to scale well, then we needed to look at a certain aspects of the application. If somebody was having problem with every transaction, then we needed to look at the application in a different way. Maybe there was a development related problem. So at the very foundation, we found that we were successful with by applying our knowledge, and we were able to make a difference. So we built AppliCare with an expert system, and we started embedding our knowledge into the system, and we have been doing that over the last many years. So we have gathered many years of knowledge and put that into AppliCare. And now, rather than getting Deepak onto your site or on in your environment and doing the analysis for you, with AppliCare, we bring hundreds of Deepaks to do the analysis. One of the problem which we see in the industry is that when administrators are asked to do okay, you set up the alerting, it all comes down to what the experience level of an administrator is. I mean, let's say I'm the administrator. Generally the administrators are not like with 25 years of experience, or, they are starting, or they have a couple of years of experience. They have seen some problems, but no one can see all the problems, and you don't want to be seeing all the problems. So when they are asked to create these alerts, they may create a few, but mostly what happens is that people are creating alerts after the problem has already come. After the problem has come, they have suffered the damage, root cause analysis is done, and then they do okay, let's create detection for this problem for next time. That's an expensive process. You paid a very big price for trying to get to that point. That's what we are changing with AppliCare, and that's one of the key differentiator of AppliCare, that rather than you know you facing all the problems, let's learn from the problems which we have already faced. So we know, we have been in the industry, we have gathered all the data from industry, we have been around for some time, we have embedded a lot of knowledge into the product. And what that does is, when the problems occur, AppliCare would automatically detect those problems, and you don't have to create those alerts. You just have to let AppliCare do its work. And we also have machine learning, and we'll get into those examples, and I'll show you how it functions. So a combination of an expert system and a machine learning works exponentially faster than what I could do, even if I was sitting in front of the machine where you were having the problem. And this was one of the reasons why I built AppliCare. I would go to the customers and they'll ask me, hey, here's the machine. Okay, we are having problems with our systems. Take it away from here. And I will have to go through, I have to look at their application, understand the application, what it is doing, how the transactions are, what's an acceptable time frame for the transaction, what's not an acceptable time frame. So a lot of learning to do in a very short period of time, and it was a cumbersome process. So with AppliCare, we completely automated all of that. That way, as and when problems are occurring, it's automatically able to detect that this is where I'm seeing the problem. Hey, let me capture the data and show it to the team. So you get an alert where which you never configured to begin with, but it was automatically detected. And the problem is identified, and in most cases we are proactively identifying before it becomes to an outage situation. So very actionable alert. And we'll talk about, depending on how much time do we have in the training, we'll talk about even building the self healing. So with these actionable alerts, you can configure the actions, like depending on, if I'm running out of CPU in a certain situation, I need to add more VMs. You can take that action. You can create more VMs. You can expand the environment, or whatever action you want to do. We give the tools to you to be able to build self healing in your environment, along with our actionable alerts. So let me take you into a quick demonstration of what I'm talking about here. So give me 1 minute and I'll be right with you guys. Yeah, feel free to put any questions you guys have in the chat. I'll definitely address them very quickly. So let me take you into a demo environment. So you can also get access to this very easily. So let me just take you there. So if you go to our website, I mean, you can just simply sign in. Please mute yourself if you're not. Akshay, just see, we're getting some noise in the background.
Yes, I'm trying to mute Mahesh there.
Okay, so
All
please mute yourself. Okay, so I'm going to take you into a demo environment, which you can get very easy, which you can get access to very easily. You can go to our website. You can either request a demo or go into the download. And with a simple registration, you will have the access to this demo environment and the download. So now let me just take you into this. So here we have a pet store application, which is an open source application. We are just leveraging it to demonstrate some of the capabilities of AppLicare. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just walk you through. I'm gonna do some transactions on this application. I'm in mood to buy some fishes today. I'm just gonna go look at a few fishes. So here is an angelfish. I'm just gonna quickly buy, and I want to fill my aquarium. So I like this angelfish, but I'm gonna go look for a few more items. So this is the view item transaction, and here I can go into tiger shark, another view item transaction. And in this one, what we've done is we have purposely added a slow sequel. So what we are demonstrating with this is that you go to the same view item transaction, but depending on the data, the transaction may behave differently. So say I am trying to check my account versus John is trying to check his account. The data is different, so data may be, so depending on the data, many times there are problems, and those are the hard ones to find. It's not like every time you're trying to do a transaction, there is a there is a problem, those problems are easy to find. I mean, if it's a consistently happening, those should be detected in UAT. They should be detected way early in the process, in the development itself, and they should be resolved right then and there. Generally, when you get to the performance testing and production environments, you're going to encounter problems which are related to scalability. I mean, as the load comes in, you're not able to handle the situation, or a certain piece of data is causing certain type of problems which are so those are the kind of problems which you should be detecting in production, or you should be detecting as early as possible. Ideally, you shouldn't have those problems in production. But now let me just walk you into the scenario, continue into the scenario we did just now. So I'm going to log in into Applicare, and Applicare is monitoring this pet store application. So I'm logging into the console right here. Once I log in, I get a view of that the enterprise dashboard, where I'm able to see how is my entire enterprise behaving, what's the load at any point of time, what's the response time, success rate, and I get all applications view here. If I'm focused on only my e-commerce application, then I can get a more e-commerce application focused view. So let's get into this, and I'm going to walk you into we just did some transactions. Let's go, and I'm seeing those transactions are coming from Virginia. I also see some transactions coming from New Jersey. That's good. Some people are showing up from there in the last few minutes. We'll compare
I'm just connected from New Jersey.
That's very good. Wonderful. So what we'll do is we'll see the experience for people. I'm actually going to put this URL in the chat. So what I would suggest is a few of you can do the transact, like do some hits on this, and then we will see how the experience is for people coming from different parts of the world. So now let me just first go into the Virginia transactions, which I did, so I can demonstrate some of the capabilities. And here I'm looking at the different transactions, and I click on my ESP3 transaction. This was the Tiger Shark where we had the problem, and I can see the time taken by this transaction is 243 milliseconds. So when I look at other view item transactions, the time taken is significantly lower, 86 milliseconds. So right there, I'm seeing a big difference in the time taken by the transaction. So right there is a red flag going on for me that there is something wrong here. And I'm able to see the complete breakdown of where the time is going. I can see what the database layer is taking, what the app server layer is taking, how much time is going in the network, and how much time is going in the browser. So these are the key areas where you want to see where the problem is. If there is a problem with the database, we will know right away. So there is no finger pointing from in this situation. We can clearly see where the time is going. Database guys are not telling you, hey, the problem is not with me, the problem is somewhere else, which basically, if you don't have the right monitoring, everybody is pointing fingers at the others. And we get a clear view in this, no more finger pointing. So now let's look at this. Here, the database is consuming only 0 milliseconds, so less than a millisecond. And the rest of the time, we have the complete breakup, 86 milliseconds here. Now, let's go into this. And we see the picture is slightly different, and actually a lot different. This is 3-4 times more than that, and most of the time is going in the database. So right there is my high level root cause analysis that something is wrong with the database. Okay, so I got that picture. I don't need to worry about these 3 layers, and then I can just drill down right from there, and I can see in a matter of like 3 clicks, you have your root cause analysis. So we can see right there that this SQL statement was consuming about 97% or 96.4% of the time. And that's what you want to know. Whenever the problems are occurring, you want to know that what is causing the problem at what time without requiring to make any changes to the monitoring. So now, okay, we have seen we can detect the problems. Now let's get to how it happens. So let's look at I'm sorry, I do get distracted by the questions. They're popping up on but I'm going to address them. I'm not able to keep up with looking at the questions as well as doing the presentation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you guys through the demo first, and then I'll address all your questions, and that'll work the best. Because I may have addressed some of those questions in my demonstration in the meantime anyways. So I'm not ignoring you. It's just a matter of few minutes. We'll get to them. And it's good that you're putting them in the chat as they come to your mind. That way we don't miss anything. Okay, so now let's see what happened in this scenario. So when Applicare is monitoring an application, it's automatically building the baseline of the transactions. It's automatically seeing what is a normal time for view item, what is a baseline for view item. And it's not only doing that for view item, it's doing that for every component of that, every method, every SQL. So whenever there is a anomaly, whenever there is a deviation from that norm, Applicare would automatically detect that and it'll bring that to your attention. So let's look at this scenario. In this particular scenario, this get special requirement method, which is making some further calls and it's invoking this SQL. This guy took significantly more time, and Applicare captured all the details on that, and it brought up that in front of us that this is where the problem lies. And now let's go back and look at the other view item transaction, which we did. And in this particular case, when there was no problem, the same piece of code was executed. The chart looks very different here. So when I go and expand this, I'm going to see that get special requirements. Let me just go there in this level. So here is the get special requirements method. And what we can see here is that there is no additional time consumed in this method. So Applicare automatically ignored additional data capture. There is no point in capturing the details on a particular method and sub-method if that's not going to be valuable to you. So that's where the benefit lies to you. And this is one of the differentiator of Applicare compared to other tools, that you're not setting any thresholds. This is not happening based on the threshold. So we are talking like milliseconds here. It could have been nanoseconds, but it would have worked the same way. So between these two transactions, between it's 9:19:31 and 9:20:01, there was no time to change any monitoring behind the scenes. There was no need for that. So you don't need an expert to be monitoring your system. It's automatically leveraging the artificial intelligence, machine learning, and it's automatically deciding what to monitor, to what extent, and at what time. So within a matter of 30 seconds, the behavior changed for the transaction, and Applicare identified it, sent you the detail. What we could have done is we could have not captured any of the details for this one, but we are doing that just for the training purposes here, so that we can demonstrate this to you. But in a real production environment, what I would actually do is I don't really want to capture any data, or I want to capture the bare minimum data for the successful transactions. So we can tell Applicare to, okay, only capture the line level entry and don't go into the details. for the transactions which were normal. Because I don't really have time to look at, as an administrator in a company where there is lots of transactions coming, you would be, if you start looking at all the transactions, if you start capturing extreme amount of data, you would be filling up your databases and there would be a performance impact, no matter how efficient the system is. So what we do is, with this Intelli Tracing, and I'll go into that. So here, like what we are doing is we are automatically deciding how much detail should be captured to and at what time. So unnecessary data is not captured, and that's how we are able to reduce the overhead on the system. So Applicator is only capturing the anomalies in production environments, and the overhead of overall, I mean, we have even seen cases where it's almost undetectable overhead. We have even seen cases where the performance actually is better with Applicare. But in a nutshell, the whole goal is to have very little overhead on your environment and not require you to be constantly configuring or configuring the monitoring at all. Let Applicare learn your environment, and it starts learning with the very first transaction which starts flowing through the system. It learns with every single transaction which comes in the system, and it doesn't require you to set the thresholds, but it doesn't force you to leverage our thresholds. You know, we don't have fixed thresholds. We don't have a, hey, if it is more than 1 second, start capturing the data at that point. Like some of the other tools like AppDynamics would do that. I mean, they would start capturing the transaction details if it takes beyond a certain amount of time. But that defeats the, I mean, I would have never captured this problem if I had set the 1 second threshold, because this is way below 1 second. And manually setting those threshold is very error prone. You're going into a, you know, I don't want to depend on, you know, either me setting the thresholds or somebody else setting the thresholds, because you're bound to make a mistake and things will slip. So when Applicator is learning what the behavior, normal behavior is, and what the abnormal then it can automatically flag that abnormal behavior in, and it's million times faster than what we could detect manually. So that's where the value lies. We have this Intellisense, Intellitrace technology, where we are automatically tracing what needs to be traced depending on the time. So this is not fixed that get special requirements would continue to be traced from this point onwards. If the behavior changes, so let's say if I go into, let me pull up some more transactions. We may have gotten some hits from other parts of the world. Okay, or maybe I have selected. Let's go here. Okay, so I don't see many other countries hits coming from there. But okay, let's go back. We see, let's look at these transactions from New Jersey. So we see some transactions from New Jersey, and we are able to see, you know, what all was happening in what all was done by that particular user. We also maintain the user path, so you can see what path was taken by a particular user if the problem is tied to a particular path. Many times there are problems occur which are, you know, if I go from one page to another page, there is a problem, but if I go from a different route to the same page, the problem doesn't exist. So those are the difficult problems to solve. And in Applicare, we are capturing how you got to a certain page. And as and when there are problems occurring, Applicare would identify those problems, and it'll bring them to your attention. So that's on the Intelli Tracing. Now, I talked about Intellisense. So we have the same technology for the transaction level. So Intellitrace works at the method level, and Intellisense works at the transaction level. So what I could do is, and we will do that when we do the deployment in the next few minutes or shortly, you would be able to play with it, and we'll try all these scenarios. So what we can do with Applicare is we can go into the configuration and we can choose. We can just basically say, hey, ouch, I needed to click this. So I can choose that, do I want to monitor even successful transactions? So in this particular case, we have said, okay, enable transaction tracing for pretty much every transaction. But I can go in a production environment, I would choose the defaults, which are only capture the tracing for when there is a slowness or if there is a failure, and if there are SLA violations. So this is where you can specify your own SLAs, so you don't have to just depend on what Applicare marks as abnormal. You can set your own. If I wanted to set, hey, capture everything after for a transaction which takes more than a second, we would do that. But the real benefit lies in let it learn and let it flag the transactions for you, because it's going to be significantly more efficient that way. And we also have the configuration where we can say exclude successful transactions. So if I don't want to see any of the transactions which are good, I can just check that and probably in a good environment exclude 99+% of the transactions. If I'm in an audit, if I need to audit the transactions, sure, then I may want to keep, hey, capture every single transaction, but you can also say capture the trace on only the bad guys. So you can say capture the transactions at the line level, but capture the trace for only the bad guys. So that's one configuration which works fairly well, even if you wanted to audit the transactions. So you have choices, and you can apply those choices at different levels. You can apply that at a server level or as an application level. An application in Applicare is a logical entity where you specify, like I have specified this e-commerce application, and I have in this e-commerce application, I have one node right now, and that's running the Tomcat and JPet Store application there. But in this application, I could have the 100 nodes and different databases. So this is a logical entity for administrative purposes, but you can do your configuration based on the application. So for this particular application, I want to capture every single transaction, but for the other application, I want to only capture when there is a problem. So say when I'm buying when I'm doing my pet store transactions, when I'm looking at the items, I don't really care about those transactions. I don't want to capture every single one of them. But when there is a credit card authorization, I may want to capture every one of them. So you can configure Applicare to capture different transactions at different levels. And what we can do is we can very quickly. So here we have hits coming from different parts of the world now, so we can see those transactions. What I can also do is I can just go ahead and very quickly convert a particular transaction into a key business transaction. So this checkout transaction is valuable to my business. I can just say, hey, convert it into a key business transaction. I can specify what application this belongs to if I want, or I can leave it for all applications. And I can set up my SLAs. So once I set up my SLAs, I'm able to, that SLA violation alerts would come in picture. But I don't have to set up. These are optional. So I can just set up this checkout transaction here, and I have created that into a key business transaction. And from this point onwards, every time this checkout transaction occurs, Applicare would capture every single instance of that. Similarly, we have created a few key business transactions here. Like I have already created for this view category item. So we are able to see every single occurrence of that captured, and we are able to see the trace on that. Now let's go back here. And now since we have data from a few countries here, let's look at
It's me from targeting from the Netherlands.
that's good. That's good. So hey, we have let me zoom in there. Give me one sec. Okay, so here we got Netherlands, and let's look at the performance numbers. So we got 485 milliseconds spent on an average page load, and here we have 131 milliseconds spent on a page load. So right there, we have started doing the root cause analysis. So say for example, if there was a problem people were experiencing in Netherlands, what I'm right there, I'm able to see where the problem could be. So I'm spending about 46 milliseconds on the app server, and here I'm spending about 27 milliseconds. So there is a little difference, but not a huge difference. But the most of the time is actually going in travel. So right there is my root cause analysis, that I'm spending more time in the network in those transactions, and right there is my issue. So I could have tweaked my server without having the right information. I could have tweaked my server by 100%, and still it wouldn't have made a big difference for Netherlands, because their problem is the data travel time. So all I need to do is I need to host this JPEG store closer to them, and this problem goes away. It'll become faster for them. So it's not an application problem actually, but it is a architecture or the hosting problem. So those are the kind of things which are very valuable. Once you have the information available to you, the right information available to you, you are able to make those decisions. And having access to that information in a very quick and easy manner is the key. It took me just like a few seconds here to see that, the how is the performance from Netherlands versus how is the performance from US, and so on. And I can look at the data from various different angles. I can look at it from, show me the page count, where the most number of hits are coming, or show me the average page load time. So now I can see that Netherlands is coming in the top when it comes to the page load time. And the number 2 is Kenville, and this is the New Jersey. And here we are in Leesburg, Virginia, where we are headquartered, so we can see the performance is the best. So the closeness to the application is making a difference here, but we're getting a valuable, very quick access to valuable data where I'm able to make a decision what the problem is. Similarly, if I wanted to sort by, let's see, again, the network view is about the same, although, hey, New Jersey beat us this time. And one more thing I do want to highlight here, you see here that ArcTrust headquarter is showing in the name there. So we are able to customize the IP and IP ranges. so the customers can put, the Arcturus headquarters in Leesburg, Arcturus office in Chennai, Arcturus office in Netherlands, and we can put the IP range. That way you would see appropriately, where the hits are coming from. And if there is a problem, you are able to very quickly able to see, hey, this particular office is having a problem. And, it definitely helps you with the root cause analysis. So that's okay. Looking at where the hits are coming from geographically, um, slicing the data from different angles, and you get the view here that what is becoming is load a factor. And most of the time, the network, the load, the app servers, these are, or the database, those are the kind of things which become the, one of those is the problem point in most cases. So we are showing all of that in these charts, that hey, how much time I'm spending in the network, how much time am I spending in the rendering, has the load all of a sudden gone up, and maybe that's what is causing the problems. Or have the is app server not behaving, or and if the app server is not behaving, which one is not behaving, so we can identify it to the particular node. We are able to see the performance of every transaction, on each node. So like let's go here. I'm going to actually take you into that, so I can look at different key business transactions, how they are performing, what's the load at any point of time, how's the response time in those transactions, and then I can look at how is each transaction performing on each node. So I'm able to see, is my load balancing working? Many times we see issues related to load balancing. Something is not, load balancer is not working, bombarding a certain node, but other nodes are sitting idle. So with Applicare, we are able to see where all the hits are going for any particular transaction, and how is the response time for that particular transaction. So we can identify clustering related issues, we can identify load balancing related issues, and then we have every single transaction captured from user experience perspective, and also from back-end perspective. So you don't have to have the front end to a transaction for us to see the valuable data. What we can do is we can we are capturing the transactions, SQL transactions. We are capturing, let's go back here. They could be JMS transactions. They could be, just a JNDI transaction. They could be email transactions. So we are capturing different protocols, different transaction types, and then either of them can be converted into a key business transaction. So I can see how is my particular SQL performing. But I want to capture every single instance of this particular SQL. I can just simply add that as a key business transaction and get the details on that. So when I'm looking at this view here, I'm able to see how a particular transaction is performing overall. I'm able to see how it is performing on every node. And here I have graphical representation of the response time from that particular node, load, average response time, errors. So at any point of time, there are errors coming. Applicare is capturing those details. It'll automatically identify you that there are errors coming with this particular transaction. And we'll end up detecting many times the security related items. Because when hackers are trying to hack into your systems, they are using known patterns. They're using the known URLs to find out if there is a, if that URL is accessible, and if you're using that particular technology. and they'll push certain transactions on you, and based on the success of those, they can get access to your systems. But with AppliCare, the moment those errors start coming, it'll automatically detect those transactions that from this particular IP, we are getting an attack right now, and we can take action on excluding that IP from the system. So although we are not a security tool, but this is a side effect and very valuable side effect where we are able to monitor the intrusion detection, and most of our customers benefit from that, and very valuable alert there. Okay, so we are able to define key business transactions. We are able to um, look at it from various different angles, like we can see what's the average response time, what's the min max time, what is the standard deviation, how is the percentile wise. So everywhere in AppliCare, we are showing the percentile data. That way you are able to make an assessment of what is the extent of the damage. If there is a problem coming, what is the extent of the damage? How many users are impacted? So like when I look at this particular transaction, I can see 95 percentile are in the 4 millisecond range, but 75 percentile in the 2 millisecond range. So right there, I know that not many users encountered this 2 to 4 millisecond jump, but most of them are seeing the transaction done within a millisecond time frame. So right there, I'm getting valuable pieces of data to make decisions on, hey, how critical is this particular um, performance improvement or the impact of some slowness. So we are capturing the percentile data pretty much everywhere in AppliCare. And all these dashboards are pre-configured for you. So you don't have to, when you deploy AppliCare, what I'm showing you right now, you have pre-configured dashboards. So you get pretty much valuable data right off the bat. You don't have to add new dashboards, but that doesn't mean we don't allow you to add the new dashboards. We have, thousands of matrices which you can pull up and create new dashboards. So here I can go and I can pull up the, say I want to get the ping time between different environments. So these are the IPs which this particular node is interacting with. Say I wanted to see the slowness between two nodes. If it was to ever develop, I wanted to chart that out. I can quickly go and create a sensor on this and say, okay, I want to monitor, ping time here. And I'm going to add all three of them. And I'm going to add those sensors every 10 minutes, take a pulse, or I can change that time, and I'm going to go ahead and add that. And here I have gone ahead and I have created a new dashboard where I'll be able to see the ping time in the next minute or so. We'll start getting the how the system is performing. How is the response time from various different systems it is interacting with. So fairly easy to do. You can get very creative, add different types of dashboards. It doesn't have to be the simple, bar chart which I am adding right now, but you can get creative. You can get, run your own commands. We allow you to bring data from external systems. So you can even write a script which maybe monitors some legacy system, and you can bring that script data into AppliCare. So we have this the shell script monitors. I don't think we have any configured here, or we do have one. So you can write your own shell script, and AppliCare would run it at a certain frequency. It'll capture the data. It'll bring that into AppliCare, and you can report on it. You can alert on it. You can chart on it. So it becomes the native citizen of AppliCare at that point. So we can bring data from different sources into Applicare and give you control over, reporting and all of that. Okay, so okay, we're doing good with the time here. I'm going to get to the questions very shortly. So we have talked about the user experience. We have talked about business transactions. Um, so there are these different dashboards. By default, Applicare would capture this line level details where, let me go into this HTTP here. So Applicare would capture this level of detail by default. What's the, how many requests are coming in, what's the error count if there are any errors, and how's the response time on an average, what's the max, what's the min. All those details are available to me. I'm able to see the timeline view, at what point, how was the response, and how it was tied to the load. Was there all of a sudden a spike in the load which caused the performance to change, and so on. So we are able to see load versus art versus errors in one chart, and those are the key factors which I want to see on a chart, and very quickly be able to identify the problems. Okay, so here we are able to look at the transaction details, their timeline, their, what node they are going to, how is the performance on a particular node. Now there could be times when, okay, the CPU is becoming a bottleneck, and that's why your transactions are slowing down. So what we do in Applicare is we have complete infrastructure monitoring, and it all happens with just one agent. We are not doing, a separate infrastructure agent, a separate business transaction agent, a separate logs monitoring agent. It's all happening with one agent. That way you have easy administration, and we are able to correlate all that data in a single pane of glass. That way you have one accountable system where you are getting the logs data, you're getting the servers data, you're getting the transactions data, you're getting the user experience data, and you're getting the complete end-to-end observability. So you don't have to go into any other system to look at the data. And again, all these dashboards are pre-built for you, so you can look at, I'm keen in how is my app server performing. There are some HTTP errors coming, and I can go and look at them in the errors right there. We have purposely added some of these errors to show you how Applicare captures those details. So this is the scenario I was talking about, where, I may be trying to break into a system, and my IP would get flagged here, and so on. So Applicare would automatically alert you in the scenarios when there are problems coming. And here on the dashboards, I'm able to see how's my CPU utilization, how's my heap utilization, and heap utilization with respect to the committed heap, with respect to the max heap. So, with respect to the max heap, I'm only 17% utilized. So I'm doing fairly well. I don't have anything to worry about there. What's the throughput? We are able to see that. So here I get a clear picture of how is my app server performing. If I was seeing like too many busy threads, or if I was seeing too many waiters, then I would be concerned about it. But I get a view that, hey, my response time looks decent. And if I go into a longer period of time here, let's see, I'm going to go into last one day, and my response time still looks pretty good, 25 milliseconds, and I'm in the same range. I'm not seeing any exponential growth in my response time. So that's what I generally look for. Anytime I'm seeing a growth in the response time, that's when there is a problem developing. And talking about problem developing, so we have these Intellicheck alerts in Applicare where it would automatically identify that, okay, database is slowing down, or a particular SQL is becoming a problem, or I am getting network packets dropped. Let's see if I see some of those here. These are not the scenarios which I'm talking about here, but say for example, network packets are getting dropped on a particular node, okay? And it'll be really hard for somebody to know that unless they have, you know, they've created alerts on that the network packets are getting dropped on XYZ node. With Applicare, it's automatically built in. It'll always be monitoring those scenarios. As and when the packets are getting dropped, that basically means that the packets have to be resent to get that transaction completed, which means the slowness in the transaction. So we will capture that scenario. We will send you that this particular Ethernet card is having problem on this particular node, and this is the extent of the problem, and these are the business transactions which are getting slow because of that. So you have a complete root cause analysis done by the Intellicheck alerting. We know that pattern. That way you don't have to know that pattern. It's automatically detected. Similarly, there is a connection leak, database connection leak, you know, which is going to kill your system sooner or later, depending on how many times those transactions are accessed. So I can go and we actually have a scenario here. I can go into, let's see, COI transaction here, and now I have caused a connection leak in this system. If I do this transaction many times, I'm actually going to deplete the system of all the connections, and the outage would happen fairly quickly. So if I do this transaction 10, 20 times, please don't do that. It'll kill the system. It'll basically kill that JPET store because there is no more connections left in Applicare. I'm sorry, not in Applicare, in this pet store. And you are not going to be able to process any requests. Fairly genuine scenario. Not only it could be not because of just the leak, it may be not a coding issue. It could be because of the database getting slow. Your SQLs are all of a sudden getting slow. Now your connections are occupied for a longer period of time in your application, and that's leading to, you know, your data sources becoming not available. So we are monitoring all those conditions. So here we are keeping an eye on how your data sources are performing at any point of time. And if I see that the number of active connections is constantly going up and not coming down, I see a problem. And those kind of things they are automatically detected by Applicare. It'll send you an alert that I am seeing a connection leak. So another minute or so, we will see a connection leak alert here in Applicare because I have created that situation. So let's see, it has come or not yet. I mean, I would see that here in the alerts. So Applicare would find that scenario. It'll flag that, and it'll also identify what piece of code is causing that leak. So let's see if I can see it here. The connection leaks. It's not there yet because it has to wait for it to be flagged as a leak. I mean, it may be a scenario where there was a little slowness, so we don't flag it right away. We will wait for a certain time frame, and then we will flag that as a leak, and then we'll detect that and send it to you. So it's always about not sending you false alerts. So we have done a lot of work in Applicare to ensure the alerting which we do is not only actionable, but it's not excessive. Because the problems you see in the industry is if something is giving you too many alerts, you are bound to ignore those alerts. And that's where the issue lies, that if there are too many kind of not actionable alerts, then you lose the value of the alerting. So with Applicare, we are sending you alerts, like the ones where there is an SQL slowness occurring, which is causing these business transactions to slow down. And these are the users which are impacted. So you would see those situations. You would see that from the ground up. Like you would see, this is where the connection leak occurred, or this is where the SQL slowness occurred. And then the complete business transaction detail on, hey, this transaction became slow. Like here, not the synthetic, I'm sorry. So in this, I would, yeah, we will be able to see the complete details of the transaction and where the problem originated from and all of that. So let me just take a minute here and go over some of the questions. So, there are questions about why, the comparison with different tools. I've already been talking about comparison with different tools. So we'll continue to do that as and when, we have points to highlight compared to other tools. So we'll have more discussions on AppDynamics versus Dynatrace at the end. So I see some of the questions on that. Okay, can the dashboards be customized? Yeah, we already talked about it. Yes, the dashboards can be customized. Can we identify the load balancers? Depending on what load balancers, yes, we'll be able to put them in the transaction flow, and we'll be able to show you those. While UI monitoring, it'll consider only real user or synthetic monitoring or both. So we are also doing synthetic monitoring. We're doing both. We're not just doing the the real user monitoring. Let me go into the last 15 minutes here. I don't need to do, okay, I have chosen e-commerce transaction. Let me get out of that. So here is, we are doing the synthetic monitoring as well as we are doing the real user monitoring. So at night time, maybe your application doesn't have as many hits, and you wouldn't know if the response time went down if you don't have the synthetic monitoring on that. So Applicare is doing synthetic monitoring. It'll produce certain transactions on your application, and it'll capture the response time and send you alerts as needed. And one of the benefit of Applicare in this synthetic monitoring is that we allow you to build Jmeter scripts and put them into these synthetic checks. So I have this site check right now, which is doing the check on the pet store, and this is a Jmeter script. So Jmeter is an Apache open source tool, which you guys are probably well familiar with. So that way you are not learning any proprietary language, you're not learning any proprietary mechanisms of creating the scripts. You are just building the Jmeter scripts. The talent is available for that, and we are able to plug that into a synthetic monitor. I can just go ahead and say, okay, I want to create a Jmeter script synthetic monitor. The monitor would go into the pet store. It'll log into the application. It'll do certain transactions, add them to the cart, do a checkout. That way, I have a complete picture of, is my checkout working? Is my view item working? And so on. So my end to end, is my application working end to end? So I get the complete picture there. And we are able to do, so yeah, you build that Jmeter script, you plug that into Applicare, you specify a few criterias, and boom, you are good to go. You have built your a synthetic monitor. We can choose the time, we can do a calendar day based, run it on a certain time on a particular day, or run every minute, or run it on certain days. So there are different capabilities available to you to be able to run these monitors as needed. And we have alerting on that. As and when failures occur on those, you can specify, when do you want to be alerted, how many failures you want to see before you want to be alerted, because you don't want to be alerted on every single failure. That'll be too much alerting. So you may want to have, if I see 3 consecutive failures in the 5-minute period, or 3 consecutive failures, I want to be alerted, and so on. We also offer not only the Jmeter synthetic monitors. You can build very simple ones where you can just build the HTTP based monitor, or you can even build shell script based monitors. So you can run a shell script every so often and do your checks on whatever you want to check at that point, and bring that data into AppLicare, and if there are problems, you can be informed. We also have this screen scraping one, which is kind of an odd one, but one of our customer asked for it. So they have those older, mainframe systems where you can't directly check the transactions, but seeing where the data, if a certain button shows up on the screen at a certain place, that tells the transaction is good. So we built that for them, and we offer that as a part of the product. So any, legacy old applications, you can build synthetic monitors on that with AppLicare and capture the data and be informed if something happens with the transaction. Now, okay, so that's about the monitoring, the synthetic monitoring. Let me take you into one more thing here. So AppLicare would send you an alert whenever there is a failure in a certain script, and it'll also send you which particular item failed. So I may have a situation that this tiger shark failed, but everything else passed. So AppLicare would send you in an email alert the details about that, what all passed and what failed. So that way you can make a informed decision on how severe the problem is, or what action, how quick action it's going to need. We're not just telling you the script failed. We're giving you complete details. And we're doing that for every single alert in AppLicare. Our goal with AppLicare is to give you the root cause analysis with the alert. So I already talked about the scenarios where network packets getting dropped, database connection leaks. We will send you hey, this is where the leak is occurring. This is, let's see if I can actually show you. So here I have that leak scenario, which we created 9 minutes back. This condition occurred, and I'm able to see exact piece of code where that leak occurred. So here is my, JPEG store persistent. This guy tried to get the connection and never gave it back to me. So that's where the problem is. And I'm able to see the exact, the complete stack trace to identify and to pass it to the developers where they can fix it. So in every single alert which we produce in AppLicare, we are giving you extensive information along with it. Say there is a high CPU alert. AppLicare would send you not only that there's a high CPU, but which process is consuming the high CPU, what time it started, and so on. So you can make a decision. Is it just a scan which just started and it's going to finish in a few minutes and there's no action to be needed, or there is some serious problem which needs to be addressed and taken care of? So we have, we are able to see here is my alert on the connection leak. with complete details. I'm able to see the, this particular method acquired the connection, never gave it back. For a developer, it's fairly, this information is basically what they need to be able to solve it. So they clearly know this koi um, fish is causing the connection leak, and hey, boom, I'm able to address it. So that's on the alerting, on the synthetic monitoring. Okay, let me go over some more questions here. How Applicator is considering a transaction as slow. We talked about it to some extent. You can configure your own SLAs. So you can say if the transaction exceeds a certain time frame, I want to flag it. So you can configure your own SLAs. Okay, here are the SLAs. You can configure the SLAs at the transaction level. You can basically say every transaction, if it is more than 2 times slower than the baseline or the average, okay, I want to see market as slow. So you don't have to set SLAs. You don't have to know what the timings are. You can just set a global policy on a particular server, on a particular application, or across the organization. So you can set those appropriately, and that way you have various ways to detect the slowness in the business transactions. One is your own SLA. Second is Applicare flagged, and that can be tuned to if it exceeds a certain multiple of the average time. Flag it, show me, and so on. And you can also say, as and when there are problems with the transactions, like there are exceptions or there are errors, then Applicator would capture the trace in those scenarios. Actually, I'm going to go over that so here I'm going to I just produced an exception, and in another few seconds here, we will see a business transaction where, let's go here, let's look at the real time here, EST5, just one sec, what was it? EST5, okay? So in another few seconds, we will see the stack trace here. I'm sorry, the details of the transaction here. And now when I drill down into this, I'm going to see the error right there. So I'm able to see the transaction failure. I'm able to see what actually happened, item ID not in the database. So there was an exception which we purposely added. Applicator would capture those details, send you an alert. Okay, so we answered that question on how do we market slow. Can we collect the thread dumps, heap dumps? Absolutely. So let's go back into that. Let's go into the server analyzer here. I can create a thread dump very quickly here, and I'm able to analyze that visually. Applicator would automatically identify if there is a stuck thread, if there is a deadlock thread. Not only we have the capability to create the thread dump manually, anytime Applicator detects there is a deadlock or there is a stuck thread, it'll automatically create the thread dump for you, and it'll automatically send you an alert. So a stuck thread, you don't have to go and issue the command for the kill -9 or whatever, kill -x, and get the dump. It'll be generated, it'll be available to you for your review later on, and it's created at the right time. So you don't have to do the timing is the key in thread dumps. If you don't take it at the right time, they're no good. And if you don't have a few of them available, taken at a certain time, you may not get if the thread was really stuck or did it just move on. So AppliCare would automatically take, as it detects stuck threads or deadlock threads, it'll automatically generate the thread dump. It'll automatically show you what those threads were busy with. So you have a clear picture and you don't have to go through the logs and you don't have to go through different tools to import the thread dump and visualize it, all accessible from here. We are similarly we are monitoring heap extensively. We are monitoring garbage collection extensively. So we are able to see what type of garbage collection is occurring, how often it is occurring, and is there a problem with the garbage collection, how much heap it is recovering. So right here, I'm able to see, there are these mostly minor garbage collections occurring, only one major garbage collection here, and so on. So I get the clear picture of how things look. So here the garbage collection occurred, heap came down, and so on. And now we have more activity happening since 9 a.m. And all of a sudden there is more heap utilization, but nothing alarming, because I'm able to see, I would want to see it at some point, it'll come down again, and so on. So we are capturing extensive amount of details on the heap, extensive amount of details um, on the garbage collection, and we do have tools for taking the heap dumps and offline analysis, but we also have tools for memory leak detection in real time, where we are able to find where the problem is, what particular object is creating the leak, and so on. Okay, so there's a question on the resource consumption during the capture. So what we have seen is the overhead is negligible or almost undetectable in most cases. What I would suggest to you is, you will have the hands-on in the next few minutes. You'll be able to play with the tool yourself, do your own analysis. The performance impact varies from how much monitoring you do in the application. So with the defaults, I already talked about Intellisense, I already talked about Intelli Trace. What we are doing with AppliCare is we are minimizing the amount of monitoring which is needed, but still be able to produce valuable results for you, still be able to auto detect problems for you. And with the Intellisense and Intelli Trace technologies, we are able to keep the overhead extremely low. And we are doing some asynchronous stuff behind the scenes. So if you see, like in this particular case, when I went there first, so when I do, say I do a new transaction here, when I go into this, I'm doing these transactions, and let's go into this real-time view. Now that data is captured. Okay, we're going really fast here. One sec. I'm gonna go look at Angelfish. Okay, so this is what I was trying to produce. So you can see that the transactions, the high-level entry is created, but there is no stack trace available, because we are doing all this asynchronously behind the scenes. Data is shipped to the collectors. That way they are able to log all that data. The agent is doing most of the stuff in memory. That way the speed is extremely fast, and the impact on the transactions is extremely low. So if, say for example, if you have a system where you're constantly erroring out you have major problems in the system, yes, there would be a little more impact because we have to capture more data. But in a decent system which has gone through, you know, a certain level of testing before going to production, you would, where you're dealing with say 95+% successful transactions or 97.8% successful transactions, you would see undetectable overhead. And we go through those tests almost on a daily basis in some of the other customer where, you know, this is a very genuine concern, but I would let you play with it and try it for yourself. Okay, tell us about connection leaks. We've already talked extensive about connection leaks. If you still have more questions on any of these, please feel free to, you know, ask follow-up questions and I'll answer those. So we do integrate with other load testing tools where you can actually create KBTs in the load testing tools, and you can pass that data to AppPLICARE. So we do have those integrations with load testing tools. Those, how to do those is accessible on the, is available on the, on our help desk. Is it a licensed tool? Yes, it is a licensed tool. Talking about hands-on, will we be sending how to do the JPEG store application and Tomcat? Absolutely. We will have very shortly, we'll get into the labs and we'll create, we'll basically create the same environment which I'm showing you, and you'll be able to play with it yourself. So the report generation, yes, we do have extensive reporting. Pretty much every place you go, there is, say I want to see this, there's a report available for this. You can print that right there. You can schedule that report too. So I can choose different criterias. I can choose different formats, and I can have, you know, that report available to me. But I can also schedule the reports. So the key thing, what I find very valuable is every morning I want to get report on how my system was performing, how the performance is by the cities, you know, what cities are coming on the top of the slow list and so on. And so say I want to get the UEM transaction stats by city. Every morning, send it to me at 10 a.m. For my application. So it'll be very valuable for me to see if there is a slowness developing in a certain part of the world, certain part of the country or city. So you can generate reports in different formats. You can export that data. You can schedule it to come to you and so on. So that's extensively available to you. So, okay. Now let's talk about a few more things. We'll get into the architecture very shortly. How to configure new servers. We'll talk about that very, very shortly. So yeah, I do want to show you quickly this log analyzer. So AppLicare has built-in logs monitoring. So let's see if I want to go to a previous time period here, and I'm able to see all the logs which are, you know, which I'm monitoring. I can create the alerts on those logs. All that information is available to you in single console, and there is no need to have multiple agents. You don't need to deploy, hey, now I want to enable logs monitoring. I need to have this logs monitoring agent, or I need to enable the synthetics, or I need to enable the infrastructure monitoring, database monitoring. We are providing all of that with a single agent. So now I'm able to filter on the logs. You can run complex, you can give complex patterns here. I'm not an expert on those, but and you can create alerts on those. So anything which I'm searching here, I can create an alert on that and be informed as and when those problems show up anywhere. Configuration is fairly easy. We can just, hey, specify the path on this particular node. I want to monitor, this particular location, and I can also specify, do I want to put a watcher on that directory? A watcher means any new log files which show up on that directory, Applicare would automatically start indexing them. If you want to monitor them from current time onwards, we have customers where they have, big, say, hundreds of megabytes of data already in the logs. They don't want to start them. They don't want to clean them for whatever reason. So what we can specify in Applicare is, okay, you may have gigabytes of logs sitting there, but I want to monitor from now onwards. I don't care about the previous data. I don't want to index those 3 gigs of the log files which are sitting there. May not be as valuable to me. So you can choose. Do you want to index that log from the beginning, or you want to index it from the current time? So we have built that in Applicare where you can choose to, the default is the current time onwards. So we found it to be very valuable for many of our customers, and I wanted to highlight it. The configuration of these, the companies have like standards on, hey, on every system we want to monitor certain logs and so on. So we can upload a configuration file which may have all the data for what system should monitor what type of logs, and we can basically configure that in one shot for hundreds of agents. So we have done that for one of our customers, and it comes very handy for many to be able to configure that very easily. So yeah, that's on the logs monitoring. Extremely powerful, very tightly integrated, and in just one console. Okay, so we'll talk about the architecture. Let's go into that real quick. Let me see if I believe I have a slide on the architecture, so I can cover that. Give me one sec. So how are we doing? Am I going too fast, too slow? Are we doing okay? Just put that in the chat, please. I would love to hear from you guys. Okay, so I do have an architecture slide. Let me take you into that. So Applicare is, the architecture is basically the controller, and it could be a cluster of controllers, and there are collectors. So you can scale the system infinitely. If as your needs grow, the number of transactions grow, we can add more collectors. That way you have the collectors capture the business transactions. They go, they persist the data for the systems, and controller provides you the dashboards and the management of the management console. And we support various different databases behind the scenes. Everything is clusterable. Collectors are clusterable, database is clusterable, controller is clusterable. So you have pretty much infinite scalability with Applicare with a simple architecture. I mean, there is no additional complexity. The way agents work is, agents would, we have either the push capability where agent would push the data to the controller or collector, or collector can come and pull the data. Depending on your environment, depending on your configuration, it'll, we can use pull or push. So push is the default in AppLicare, where controllers, the agents are pushing the data to the collectors, but it can be changed if needed. So that's on the architecture. Okay, so we'll get into the config deployment of the agents. We'll get into the that very shortly. Do we provide it as a SaaS platform? Yes, we do. So that option is also available. Talk to us about it. We have downloads available, so on-prem is also possible, so that many of the customers who want the on-prem solution, they don't want their data to travel to our data center or some data centers, they do have that. Our product is, the full capabilities are available. Many of the vendors are basically moving away from the on-prem deployments, but we are giving you same capability in on-prem, so you're not getting a scaled down version or some features missing kind of things. Okay, why we need collectors? And you don't need a collector. So that's a good question. You don't need a collector if the controller can manage the data. You generally need collectors when the data is, you have 100 agents deployed or 1,000 agents deployed or 10,000 agents deployed. A controller can't do the collection at that point. So by default, when you deploy AppLicare in your environment, controller can do everything. Okay, let me go back to that slide again. Just give me one sec. Okay, so you may not need the collector at all if it's a very simple deployment. And what we are going to do in our test in our lab is going to be that you don't even need collector at all. Controller would do the job of the collector too. So this scenario is good until you have you have too many nodes monitored and too many transactions coming into AppLicare. So it's just a sizing. And we do. So we do support the controller doing all of that and bring in collectors as needed. Question about how many users can we support without collectors? Fairly large volumes can be supported without collectors, but it'll all depend on the size of the what the data is coming in, and what the how much monitoring you're doing, how many systems you are monitoring, how many agents are deployed, and what each agent is monitoring. So simply speaking, if I am Amazon.com and I want to monitor every single transaction of my application on my site, then yes, we are doing billions of transactions monitoring at that point, right? So you will need to size your monitoring system appropriately, AppLicare appropriately. But if you're doing simple demo environment monitoring or simpler applications monitoring, you can get away with very simple configuration. So we have both the options available. You can start small and then grow as the needs arise and as the needs change. Okay, so let me look at a few more questions here. Okay, we don't see any connection between collectors and the controller in the diagram. Yeah, that's not needed, because a collector is doesn't have to go to the controller. All it is doing is it's gathering the data is coming to it. So say I have 1,000 agents deployed. Those 1,000 agents are actually I'm going to go into the console real quick. Okay, so here I'll go into this advanced options. Here I can just go and say, here is my URL for the transaction persistence data. So here I can specify a URL for a cluster of collectors. I don't have to be a one collector. I can just give a URL for a load balancer here. And then I have 100 collectors behind the scenes. So I specify the URL and agents would, push the data to that URL. And that collector is persisting that it's basically accepting the request, it's taking that data, persisting it into the database. So it doesn't have anything to do with the controller. It can pretty much work. Controller can be down and collector would continue to work. So that's why there is no connection between the two. So then there's another question. So, for a smaller environment, like 1 or 2 engineers, you can just basically just work with, the standalone collector, standalone controller, and that should give you plenty of monitoring capability. Okay, so looks like I have answered all the questions there. Let me see. Are we good for a quick break here? Let me see if I want to cover something else before we get into the hands-on. We talked about. Okay, so there are performance comparison capabilities in Applicare that you can compare how was my version 1 of application performing and how is my application performing with version 2 today. So yesterday was version 1, today is version 2. I want to do comparison between the two. I can compare, how transactions are performing. I can look at the comparison from various different angles. I can look at it from a server perspective. I can look at it from a property perspective. Like I want to see, okay, show me the heap. How was the heap performing between those 2 time periods? Or how was the throughput different between the 2 time periods, between the 2 different versions? So we can look at it from various different angles by either property or by a server, um, or we can do comparison between business transactions. How was my transactions between the 2 time period? We can look at the key business transactions performance. That hey, how was my this view category transaction performing between the 2 time period with the version 1 and version 2? Is there a big change in the performance over the period of over with that upgrade? So we get the clear picture. We can compare errors. We can compare even the transaction flows. Did something new show up with this version? Is there a difference in the, so we can compare different time periods with different angles. We also have availability monitoring, so we can see how is my system performing over the last whatever time period, or how are my systems performing. So you can have hundreds of these nodes monitored, and you will get the report on. You can have a report with, was the system available, not available, was it not monitored, was it in a blackout window, was there maintenance going on, and so on. So, and you can schedule those reports to come to you. I mean, I like to see the availability reports every morning at a certain time. That way I know what maintenance occurred on my system at a certain time, and so on. So we do extensive availability monitoring. We also have events monitoring, where we can see how is the system performing at any point of time. Okay, so in the events, there's something not right here that kind of threw me off. The whole intent of this system is that the data is generally stuck in the Outlook, that the transactions data, how is the, what was happening in a system at a particular time. So when the connection leak occurred, say for example, here we had a problem, there was a connection leak. We identified, say I've done the root cause analysis. I know that KOI transaction was impacted. I may want to put that on the events calendar and say this connection leak caused the site to slow down because the number of connections, if I would have done that 10 times, it would have caused the site to slow down because the connections were not available after that. And I would want to put that in as a tag. Hey, on this particular time, this is the problem occurred. So right now okay, time period is, let's say 9 a.m. here to 10 a.m. and what happened. Okay, for this particular app, e-commerce, connection leak issue, and I can put the description, diagnosed by Deepak, I mean, whatever, like I can put a connection leak issue caused slowness. Now, and I can create a data preserve. That way, anytime there is a, like, there is a sweep of the data which needs to be deleted based on the archival policy, this will override it. So I want to keep this data for a longer period of time. I don't want our data deletion to wipe it off. So I can just say I have, this issue occurred at this time, keep the data between this time period and hit apply. So now I have captured that information here. And when I can enable this tag to show up on any of the charts. So say tomorrow, John comes in, he's trying to look at that time period and he sees some abnormality. Oh, something happened here. Or why did that happen? That tag would show up and it'll show, we don't have that enabled here. It's an option. So that way it'll show up right here. It'll show Deepak did the analysis. This was the problem. So John doesn't have to do the analysis again. So comes very handy in information sharing. Many times there are outages or slownesses or issues in the environments. People do the root cause analysis. All that information is in Outlook, in the mail systems. Now, when you're later on looking at it, you have to kind of redo the whole analysis. And this way we can avoid all that. And we have all that information available on the tooltips. Let me see. That's one of the options here. So I'll have to figure that out one, but if you excessively use it, then yeah, it becomes a little bit annoying, and that's probably why we have turned it off by default. Because if you excessively use to put too many things, then the too many tooltips start showing up. But if you use it correctly, it's wisely, it's very valuable tool for sharing the information. I think at this point, we're going to take a quick break. We can take a 15-minute break, and we'll be back at, let's say, 11:05. So we'll be back at, and we'll take it from there. In the meantime, feel free to ask any other questions you have in the chat, and we'll be back shortly. Thank you, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Deepak, this is Mohammed from New Jersey. Can I have a question for you?
Mohammed? Mohammed, go ahead.
So my question is, I just recently started as a performance engineer. It's a very big company in North Carolina, but problem is they don't have a performance environment. So I just started, and so problem is they don't want to invest any money for the monitoring tool. They just want to use the open source. So I was talking about the monitoring tools like a Dynatrace. So now I know on your tools, but they don't want like most of the tools right now, very high price. Company doesn't want to spend that much money for monitoring. So I know that so is what kind of license they can buy? Maybe they're not gonna have a lot of very high price.
There's not a lot of money you need to invest in Applicare to be able to get the value. Let's work offline. I mean, you
Sure.
can start with as little as like a couple of $100, which is nothing. And we can work with you, and Akshat and Mehak will work with you, um, and absolutely. I mean, we are significantly more cost effective than uh, some of the other vendors. So cost wise, not only we have great capabilities in the product, but in terms of the value we provide for the price, I mean, it's significantly better. So we'll work with you.
Yeah, so basically what they told me, like I say, I just started for like a month ago. So I did write some script for like a Jmeter script to just generate the load, but they don't have any monitoring tools at all. So, but the problem is they don't want to invest any money. So I said, look, if you need a better tools, but like I said, do you have a maybe demo for month,
Correct.
demo?
We do have an eval. You can download that and try it out. So we'll work with
No,
you.
basically because you see, I like so far the way system work. I think is because I did try with the Dynatrace, but because of the price they didn't like. So now, like I said, the problem is, like I say, it's not up to me. It's up to the
Correct,
company.
correct.
But we can give a feedback. We can show them the demo. Say, look, this is the match. I can. This is the can help me to identify the your issue, and then we can go through. So okay. So yeah, that probably, like I say, if you I probably can do that. Like I said, I didn't get the server access yet. I'm going to this week. I'm going to get the server access so I can install the controller there. So is it like a so you can install into the Windows or Linux? It doesn't matter.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Sure. So yeah, if I have a contact, so like I said, that I need it for maybe I can show my boss. So look, this is that's the way it work, and maybe the price is not too high. Maybe I can able to manage it.
Wonderful. Great. We'll continue to work together, Mohammed. So let's get started, guys. I have shared a lab guide with you guys in the chat. What you should do is you should download that and look at that. We're gonna go and do the exercises now, so you get the hands-on experience with Applicare. So we're gonna first go ahead and create the instance, the AWS instance, and then we'll get the Applicare up and running, the controller up and running. Then we'll do the deployment of the agent, and then we'll get into the monitoring. So just a quick high-level overview. And now, is everybody able to? If anybody isn't able to download the lab guide, raise your hand or let us know if there is any issue in accessing that or being able to get to it. But other than that, I'm going to assume that everybody got the lab guide and they're able to they'll be able to follow along. What I'll do is I'll do these labs in front of you right now. That way you get to see, and we will keep some additional time for you to do the labs at the same time. But even if you get stuck, I mean, I know 2 hours is not enough time for us to be able to help everybody. So even if you say if you get stuck somewhere, do follow along with what I'm doing. That way you can at least watch it later, you understand, and you can do the labs later. So you will have access to the AMI and all of that, for after the training too. So the whole purpose is that once you are able to get to the point where you understand how it works, you can play with it and you can run with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a virtual machine on EC2. I'm assuming most of you are familiar with EC2 at this point. You would need an account to be able to create that VM and launch that. So you can get a free account on this URL if you don't have it already. And let's just launch an instance of we're gonna go ahead and launch an instance of an Applicare AMI, the training instance. So here we go into the EC2 dashboard. Let me just follow along now. Give me one sec. Okay, so I'm gonna go into okay, I'm gonna go into no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to create an account. I already have an account. I'm just gonna go my account, management console. I'm gonna use this account for now. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit under the weather myself. So, okay, so I just logged in into my AWS account. I'm going to go ahead and create a new instance. And I'm going to go ahead and, okay, this looks a little bit different. Let's just go back to here. I go into EC2 instances. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say launch an instance. Okay, I'm going to look for AppLicare AMI. So just keep this in mind. Once you are in the AWS console, you're going to look for AppLicare AMI. So let's just do a search on that in the AWS marketplace. I want to do a search on, okay, so I found 2 community AMIs. So what you want to do is you want to pick this May 2021. So this is the one, streamlining application performance management with AppLicare. And it's the important thing is you pick the May 2021. So just follow along with me. I'm going to pick that. You can choose, you can use your own Linux to do the setup. You just need to download AppLicare, but let's keep that offline, Mohammed. We can work with you later. You would understand the whole thing within the training. You can do it on your own Linux. There is nothing saying you can't do it on the, this is just a VM. Okay, so let's, what you can do is for all the logs monitoring and everything to work, the micro instance is not enough, but most of the if we disable the logs monitoring, you can use the micro instance, and I'll show you how to do it. So you can use the free instance, micro instance. I'm going to go ahead and use the T2 small instance, and this is generally a paid one, but I'm going to use that one. Okay, I'm going to add the storage. The default 12 gig is fine. Let's keep going further. I don't need any tags, but I do need security group. So in the security group, we need to choose one of the, we need to choose certain configuration. We need to expose certain ports on this environment for Applicator to work. So we're going to expose the port 80, and we're going to expose the port 8080 for pet store. So these are the 2 ports we're going to expose, and 1527 is for the database. We may not need to expose this, but I have it. I'll just leave it there. And all this information is in the lab guide. So what I'm doing right now is I'm pretty much following the lab guide here. So all this information is in the lab guide. Just give me 1 sec. I'm going to sneeze here. Sorry. Okay. So don't feel overwhelmed. I mean, all this information is in the lab guide. We choose the AMI, we choose the instance type, and we choose the storage. We can go with the defaults. Yeah, we did share, Uday, we did share the lab guide. It's in the chat. If you look at the chat, I can put the URL again in the, let me send that back to you guys again. So here is the lab guide. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm making a mistake. This is my bad. I put it on, I didn't put it for everyone. Thank you, Deepak. You have a good name. Okay. So now everybody should have the lab guide. And thank you for that, for letting me know that I was just not sending it to everyone. So now in this lab guide, now we have all the configuration steps which I am following, and we are just launching a VM which is pre-configured to which has Applicare installer. It has the demo environment, and we can just work with that. So here I'm ready. I have chosen those steps. I'm going to go ahead and launch my instance. It just gives me a little warning, and it says that is open to the world. The security group is open to the world. So I'm okay with both of those things, and I'm going to go ahead and launch it. And I'm going to just use my, just one sec. I should have my Applicare. Oh, I don't see that key here. That's not good. Okay, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna use another account. Sorry, but everything which we did is I'm just gonna use a different account. So let's just go out back, log back in. I didn't have the right key there. Gosh, I can't read the captcha there. Okay, so that's done. Okay, so I'm gonna do that again. Here, I'm gonna go and launch an instance. I want to look for Applicare. And when you do this, just keep one thing in mind. You may have to choose Northern Virginia, because the way Amazon does the AMI sharing, I believe it is, we have to share in a certain region. So just make sure you choose the Northern Virginia on top, and then you're going to create the instance in Northern Virginia. It doesn't impact anything else. I can build it in Mumbai. I can build it in any part of the world. So it shouldn't have any impact on using it. So here, now I go select my AMI. Okay, I'm going to choose the small instance. I'm going to go configure the rest of the details. Storage is fine. Let's go move. I want to add the security group is the only important thing that I want to be concerned about. So I've added that, and I'm going to review and launch. Go ahead and launch. I needed my key. This is an important one. This is why I came to this account, that I didn't have my Applicare training key option in the other one, and I wanted to use that. So I'm back here, and I'm going to launch my instance. So this is just AWS stuff. This is nothing to do with Applicare. And we're going to launch the instance. Sorry, I was getting a sneeze again. So, okay. So now we have launched this instance. It's loading. In another few seconds, this should be available to us. And then we'll start using, and we'll get into the rest of the guide. So first thing we'll do is, once the instance comes up, we have already done this. We have launched the instance. We got the key. We will have the public IP here, private IP here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and connect to that. And there are, like, I am going to do the SSH. I'm running on a Mac, so I'm going to do SSH to that environment. But if you're running on Windows, you can follow the steps on the how to configure the PuTTY to use the key pair and log into the environment. So the instructions are in the lab guide. So let me just go, let me see if my instance is up here. Okay, so it's up and running. Let me click on that. I see the IP here. Let me copy this IP. And what I'm going to do is now I'm going to go and I'm going to log in into my here. I'm going to just go and do my SSH into that VM. So this is the IP I'm in. It tells me that it's a new one. I say sure, accept it. And I'm in the VM. You would similarly be, if you're using Windows, you would similarly be in with the PuTTY. And once we are there, we have a couple of things in there. So we have this installer in the environment. We have the license key, and we have already configured the pet store on this environment. Let's see, where is the pet store? That's available in the root, I believe. So Apache, Tomcat, yes. This is where the pet store is available on the running on Tomcat. So let's just move further. We'll keep following the lab guide, and we're going to do the install of AppLicare in this environment. So is everybody following me along, at least like watching me right now? Are we doing good? Do give me some feedback in the chat, please. Or am I going too fast? So Deepak, how are we doing? Uday? Muhammad? Okay. So okay. So we're going at the right pace. We're doing good. We have created the instance. Okay, we're gonna go back to, let's quickly review the lab guide further. Okay, we logged in to the environment. This is about the PuTTY. Now we're gonna go and install AppLicare. So we already have this, the installer is there. And we're gonna go and do the pet store war is deployed on Tomcat. It's accessible, it's available in this particular Tomcat. So just for your information. And we have already deployed that war file in the web app directory. And we have also deployed the Applicare agent. So let's move further and let's do the install of the Applicare controller. Those are my kids a few years back. Okay, I wanted to bring, okay, this back, and I'm gonna do this. Okay, so now let's do, so we're gonna follow along here. We're gonna just do, okay, just so we familiarize ourselves. Yeah, this is what we want to do. So we're gonna go and we're gonna do Java minus jar AP_681.jar. Oh, where am I? Am I in a different directory? EC2 user, LL. Okay, so oh, I'm typing the wrong thing, 861. No wonder it wasn't coming. Okay, so the Java is already configured on this machine. So that's the only thing which we need as a prerequisite. Java 8 is what I would, that's what is recommended uh, for Applicare controller. So I'm going to continue with the install. Just some messages here. I'm going to install it in the same directory, EC2 user. That's fine. I'm going to select that. O to OK. That's good. Press one more confirmation. Press 1 to continue. And here we need to give the IP of the node. So what we need to do is we're going to go and use this private IP, the internal IP. Okay, so we just use that, and I'm going to put that in this. And I'm going to use the port 80 for this so that we can access it without adding the port. I'm going to continue. I'm going to use the choice of Derby database. You can use different databases depending on the environment. Like if you're building a production environment, we recommend MySQL database. Some customers have preferences for Oracle. We support that. And Derby comes pre-built into Applicare, so you don't have to do anything. Just choose one and we'll be up and running. So now the JDK path is what we need to give. Okay, use private IPv4. We did that. Okay, so here is the JDK path where the JDK is installed. We're going to use this. And I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to put my JDK and press 1 to continue. Okay, so we have answered all the questions, and I'm starting the installation. So I'm basically creating the Applicare controller is getting deployed as we speak. So the IP which we have right now is for the VM, and we are deploying the controller, Applicare controller. So this exercise is to deploy the Applicare controller. Mohammed, this is the same thing which you will do on your own machine when you download our installer. So you will download Applicare 8.x version of Applicare installer from our website, and you would be doing the same thing on your machine. So this is we're not using the hosted version. Okay, so I'm gonna let it finish. It'll take another minute or so. Yeah, correct. If you're doing local install, then the IP will be your own local IP. But right now, this is our this is our VM which we got from Amazon, and I'm using the Amazon IP. So now I have deployed. So let's look at this. So I have just created this Applicare directory, which is where the Applicare controller is installed. So let's go into, we have to do like one little thing in there. We have to make sure we give the permissions to run on Linux. That's important. So we're gonna go give those permissions. And any Linux guys here, I mean, you can always give fine-grained permissions, but I'm going with the 777 for just for the ease purposes and not get into that discussion. And then
I'm gonna just keep it execute permission only.
Correct. So now we're gonna go and copy the license file. So we have this license file here, and we're gonna copy that. So I'm gonna copy that license AP_admin server key to to Applicare directory, and it should overwrite the one there. Okay, so now we have copied the license, and now we're going to start the Applicare controller. Okay, so I'll go into this bin directory, cd server bin. Oh wait, I'm not in Applicator directory. So Applicator, one more thing which you guys may want to know, Applicator is built on top of Tomcat. So the controller is Tomcat. Collectors are, are Tomcat. So it's all, this is just application deployed on top of Tomcat. So now let's go into we are here in this directory. We're going to just do the startup.sh, and I'm starting the controller. And once I have deployed this controller, it's gonna in a minute it should basically say I'm up and running and I'm ready to accept connections. So I'll let it get to that point, and then we'll go and open a connection to that. Okay, let it get there. Ouch, not that. Sorry, this. Okay, so it's just getting there. Another minute. Okay, so we have Applicare up and running. License has been deployed. Now let's go and access that that console. So we have this IP here. I'm going to copy that public IP. This is the instance I created, and Applicare is put on port 80. So when I go to that, Applicare is automatically accessible from that particular IP. So now I can log into Applicare with admin. But right now we have not deployed any agent. So it's a plain vanilla Applicare controller with nothing deployed on it. So any questions so far? I mean, we have just done a controller install on a VM. It's a fairly straightforward process. You follow the instructions, you can't go wrong. And it's a Tomcat instance which is listening on port 80 as we speak. And it's using Derby database behind the scenes. So far so good. Okay, I'm going to assume everybody is good there. Now we're going to go ahead and deploy the agent. Let me follow the instructions further. So we already see everything is good. We logged in. We have already opened the ports. We should be good. Security configuration was already done. We're going to go ahead and start the Apache Tomcat. Okay, so I already showed you guys it's deployed in this location. We have already pre-configured this Apache to have Applicare agent. So once I start, it's going to have Applicare agent pre-deployed. All the instructions for agent deployment are available in the installation guide. So let me just go back and let me open another shell window here. Ouch. and I'm gonna go and do another SSH there. I'm gonna go to Apache, and I'm gonna go to bin clear. Okay, sudo./startup.sh. Okay, so we have started the Tomcat for JPEG store here on the same machine. So I just have two windows open here. Another minute, we should have that's accessible. So we're gonna go and pull up the. Let's kill these guys. I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need that. This is good. I got my IP copied. I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna go into paste, and I actually wanted to go to colon 8080 slash. Just one sec. Let me see what is the port we are using. 8080. That's right. And JPEG store is all lowercase. Okay, so I just need that. Okay, so we have the the pet store available, and now I can go ahead and add the Applicare agent to the Applicare controller. In the latest version of Applicare, this is automated, so you wouldn't have to add it manually. But in this version, which we have on this, I need to add it manually. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to configure the port 8080, and that's it. I need to give the local host 8080, and I'm going to go ahead and add that agent to Applicare. Okay, and here I can specify the application name. So we were looking at that e-commerce application, or I'm just going to call it ecom. Okay, and I'm going to save it. So here we have, Tomcat added, and it's being monitored by Applicare at this point. And it should inherit a certain type of monitoring by default. So we can do business transactions, end user experience. I want to do, say, external JMS, external web services, JavaScript errors, HTTP error code. I'm going to do JDBC connections, LDAP, and logs. Okay, so I added these things. In the latest version of our Applicare, I believe it's about to go GA. The defaults are, these things are all defaults, so you wouldn't have to change them. So you can enable or disable a certain type of monitoring. Say I don't want to do JMS monitoring, I can disable it. Fairly simple. You can pick and choose what you want to monitor, and it's a very easy deployment. I don't have to choose, what packages to monitor, what classes to monitor. All I need to say is, hey, what type of monitoring do I want to do? And you may not even have to go into this at all with the latest version, because the defaults are pre-configured for you. Now we have, so now we have done this configuration. I can do some transactions on this. And I should start seeing some data into Applicare. Give it another minute here. So this data is brought into Applicare asynchronously. I mean, there are business transaction data is not captured like in real time. It's captured, but it's pushed to the controller or pushed to the database in an async manner. So there could be a 15 seconds delay in getting the data. So I'm already seeing data coming in from that agent into the database. I'm starting to see the different different pulses taken for that. I should see business transactions shortly. Maybe I missed something. Let me see. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to say this, but I'm going to disable this for now. I'm going to hit apply. And okay. Okay, so we started getting the data into AppLicare already. So here we have all the transactions which happened in the environment are getting captured. Okay, and here we are. I'm able to see, I'm going to go ahead and create some business transactions. Before I go ahead and do that, I'm going to restart this Tomcat for once, because once we deploy the agent, in this particular version of AppLicare, there is a shortcoming that we needed to restart the AppLicare. I'm sorry, the Tomcat. But in the latest version, because those defaults are already chosen for you, you wouldn't need to do this. So let's do, okay, let me just do this. Okay, so here is my Tomcat. So I'm gonna just go ahead and kill -9, 24, 77. Okay, ouch, I need to do sudo. Okay, so I did that. Now I'm gonna just restart it. Okay, so now let's go back to the, okay, let's go back to this, this lab guide here. So all of this information, all of what I have done so far is accessible, is all in the lab guide. So you don't have to be overwhelmed if I'm going too fast or something. You can follow it along at your own pace very comfortably. You wouldn't have to worry about I went too fast. So let's go here. Let's bring this up, and now I should have my, go back to this pet store. Is it up again? Yes, it is up. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and create some business transactions here. Add as a key business transaction. I'm gonna call it view category. Okay, and I'm not gonna set up any SLAs. That's it. I just created a business transaction there. I'm gonna do one or two more. I'm gonna create a view item here. Add as a key business transaction. View item. Save. Okay, so I have created this business transaction here, and you can see what all we have created. We have created two of them right now. I can filter by, okay, I want to see all my HTTP transactions. Here I got those. If I wanted to filter by, say I wanted to do a little bit more, I can just go ahead and type that there and see only the view category. Now let's do some transactions here. So I'm doing view category here, and I'm going to go look at few items. Okay, now when we go into, now I can drill down into this. I'll get this out. View category, view item. There is only one transaction so far. It's gonna come in a few seconds. There is like a 15 seconds delay before the transactions are logged. So okay, so we got some transactions there, and we are able to see the details on those transactions right there. So I have configured, not only I created the controller, I connected it to the Tomcat agent. I have created the key business transactions. I deployed a certain aspects of monitoring, and I'm pretty much up and running with the monitoring as we speak. Any questions so far?
So I do have a question. So if I correctly understand, so you install the controller. So like an example on my scenario, I remotely working from home. So I do have a workstation they give me is accessing their network, like remotely access their network. So if I install the controller into my workstation, then I can just install the client. Whenever I set up the client, I can just use their IP address and their port. It should be fine.
Provided you have the right accesses. Like the ports are important to be, communication is important. So if you're connecting, say if you are doing everything in North Carolina, which is most likely the case, you would be setting the workstation, your workstation would be at the client too, right? Not a local in-house.
No, that's remote access because I remotely connected to their
Correct.
my
So yeah,
okay,
that's it. So you can do it on your desktop. You can install the controller on your workstation, and yes, you can monitor their. You can deploy the agent on their machine, whichever machine you want to monitor. You can deploy the agents there, and yeah, capture the data.
So like I say, we do have a performance environment and we have a production environment. So I do have to monitor two environment, like one is the sometime production and sometime the performance environment.
Okay, so you can always build. Hey, there is a ecom non-prod, ecom prod. You can have different applications configured in Applicare, or you can have different controllers for non-prod and prod. It depends on your preference.
Sure. So the my plan is right now I'm going to try locally because I do have a module server and I already have a Tomcat installed. So you have to have a Tomcat server installed, either Windows or Linux. It doesn't matter. You have to have a Tomcat server to install
You
the
you have to have
controller.
the controller.
Yeah, the controller require Tomcat server or you don't need it.
It comes with the built-in. You don't need to worry
Oh, okay.
about.
So just need to then when you just install the controller and it should be
That's
fine.
it. You don't have to. I just gave that additional information, and it wasn't needed. So you just are deploying the controller. That's it.
Sure. So help us to get the download so we can try locally how it goes.
You can easily get the download from our support.arcturustech.com. I mean,
Actually, I did. Yeah, I tried it. There's a pending approval.
so sure, we'll approve that. It may be going through the approval process, but when you make a request to, we will approve that, and
I already
then
did it. So if you can, I don't know, you can able to see it.
we will approve that today.
Sure. Thank you.
So you will have that accessible to you, and you will get the installer just like what I have on the what I used, and you will be doing exactly the same steps which we did here.
Yeah, I'm scared. I had a Amazon EC account, but answer like I forget to turn off. My free version was like a 750 hours.
That's
And,
all right.
and then after you get a exit, they charge you your card.
Correct.
So you have to be careful.
Correct. So how's everybody else doing? I know Mohammed has been very um, interactive. That's good. How's everybody else doing? Let me see. Um, Deepak, Uday, Abhishek, how are you guys doing? I do see a lot of people on the call, so I'm assuming everybody is following along. At this point, what I would suggest to you is you should do the lab guides. You should follow along. Whoever is able to do, whoever has an AWS account, and whoever is able to do um, the labs. I mean, I would suggest following along the labs. Oh, that's good. So so I see some people are following Thanks, Deepak, for the feedback. So what I would do is I'm available to you to answer any questions you have. I suggest you configure this in your own environment now, in your, like, if you create your own lab environment and start playing with it, and we can answer any questions you have.
For the demo purpose, this is Mohammed Sama here. For the demo purpose, I did my friend there, it also go through the process, let me say approval process, right? Because he said currently a date is pending. So it goes through the same process, right?
It goes through the same process. We'll make sure we approve that today.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm available, but I'm gonna be quiet now to give you guys some time to follow along the lab guides.
Let's have maybe a brief recap. The client might actually ask, why would you like to use AppLicare? Why?
I'm sorry, why would you want to use AppLicare?
So the client might actually want to ask you that question. You know, you've given actually a detailed explanation, or briefly, he might ask or she might ask, why would you want to use that monitoring tools in this environment?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand your question. So your understand is, why would you want to use AppLicare?
The client actually, you actually presented this monitoring tools to the client, saying, "Hey, I want us to actually try this particular monitoring tools."
Correct.
He actually asked you some, you know, question that would, you know, he or she wants you to actually convince him. Just a recap. Why would you like to actually use that tool when we have a whole bunch of open source tools for monitoring?
Simple.
Is the price, maybe the
That
less price?
no, it's not only it's ease of use. You want to get the problems detected as early as possible in a least painful way. So what we have done with Applicare is we give you the doctor in the box. You get Deepak without paying the price of Deepak. And you get hundreds of Deepaks. So that's the differentiator. We have built Applicare to replace the experts, because the problem in the monitoring is, if you do too much monitoring, you're going to have slowness in the application. If you do too little, you're going to miss out on the problem detection. So the key is, you need to have the right amount of monitoring, and you need to have the adaptive monitoring, because things do change. So the examples I showed you say that get special requirement method was not behaving at a particular time, then Applicare captured more detail on that. Versus when it was behaving good, there was no need to capture the details on that. So the monitoring needs to be adaptive. You're never going to have, like, if the problem is simple enough that it's happening consistently all the time, those are easier problems to solve. They are probably detected way early in the SDLC life cycle. But the problems which kind of slip and get to the production are generally the complicated ones. And that's where Applicare really shines, that it gives you hundreds of points of inspection and hundreds of points of monitoring without you even knowing those patterns, without you knowing that, hey, if there is a network packet drop, what the impact of that is going to be. So many people may not know, when they are starting out in the career at the administrative level, your understanding is different than what our engineers who have years and years of experience. So it's just just a natural evolution. We have built all that experience in the product in Applicare, and that's what makes the difference. Very quickly identify the problems, single dashboard for all kinds of monitoring, end-to-end monitoring, and a single point of all the monitoring data. So that's in a nutshell why you would want to use Applicare. There are tools available, say, database monitoring tool, networks monitoring tool, user experience monitoring tool. But if they are separate tools, then generally that leads to the finger pointing. Everybody is trying to say, oh, my area is clean. There is no problem in my app server. There is no problem in my database side. You go figure out where the problem is. The app managers are stuck with, they still need to find out the problem. So silo-based monitoring just doesn't work. That just leads to so much wasted time, and trying to coordinate, trying to take the data, like say I'm having a problem at a certain time in Applicare, I'm getting this kind of all the data at that particular time. I can see, okay, what happened at 11:58. It may be in different tool. If we are using different tools, they may not have taken the pulse at 11:58. I mean, here I can see all the transactions at a certain time. I can choose a particular time I want to go and, okay, I want to see, from this time to this time and apply. So I can choose a custom time frame, or I can just, and I can zero in on all the data for that particular time. So there is no mismatch of database monitoring tool was capturing the time at 11:58, but the user experience tool only captured at 11:59. Now, the problem occurred somewhere in between. So having the data accessible from one location, from one tool, end-to-end monitoring makes a huge difference in the problem resolution, the time to problem resolution. Yes, you can do it with different tools, but it'll add significant amount of time to the process. And it's all about saving the time and proactively solving the problems. So did I answer your question?
Absolutely. Your DMI actually sound weird. So currently no trial version, right? Right.
Good. Okay, so let's do the exercise. Any other questions? Yeah, feel free to put them in the chat or bring them up. I mean, we're gonna spend some time on the exercises at this point. Is everybody with me?
Yes.
Good.
So this is my feedback, because you see, I think is comparatively with the Dynatrace, because Dynatrace, you just install one jar file into the server and automatically capture everything and send to their Sas account. So like I said, normally if you register, they give you the software as a service account, and you just install the jar file to your server and everything collected automatically for you.
Correct. So here we wanted to show you how to deploy the controller on-prem too. So in this training, we have done the on-prem deployment. We have showed you how Applicare internally works, rather than just doing the SaaS platform.
That's
So
absolutely right because it's more expensive. Than,
it's just like there are preferences. I mean, there are companies, we are seeing a lot of companies have resistance to send their data to the other companies' data centers. So you do have a choice with Applicator 2 to have that, to go that route. But in this training, we chose to show you that you can deploy it in-house. You can, you know, like you can, your data stays within your environment itself, and you get a full-fledged working environment with which is totally in your control.
I'm 100% agree with you because my company, they don't like to sending the data to the other company. So
And there is a network cost. See, when you are sending the data to a different data centers, I showed you that in the earlier in the demo. I mean, whoever says that the networks are fast, yes, they are fast. But when we went into this, like I showed you how the difference was between US and Netherlands, you could see there is a cost to sending data. I mean, there is a time period difference. So let's go into last 3 hours here. We already covered this. When we see the difference, okay, user experience, I'm going to do zoom in. So here we have Netherlands where we were spending, about 100 and what is that, 255 milliseconds in the network. And when I go from US, I'm only spending 32 milliseconds in the network. So you can see when you are sending your data, your transactions data to a SaaS data store, there is a cost to it. Your network is getting utilized. The time it's taking is coming in picture. So there are benefits to the SaaS version. There are benefits to the on-prem version. And many of our customers are preferring on-prem. That's why we catered this training to the on-prem.
like I said, I'm 100% agree with you. That's because this is the one of my director explained to me certain tools. That's why they didn't like it because they have because this my company is doing like a payroll system. They don't want therefore that data goes to that somewhere else.
Correct. I mean, every transaction, there are credit card information. There's a lot of personally identifiable information. We call it PIE in US. So that information needs to be protected. So we're giving you both the choices.
I'm sorry, I'm bothering too much. So the Mala is I don't know how soon you can approve the download. I think because if we can install the controller, I think we get a better understanding. We have a better room to play on it. I think we might get a more question. I don't know. Maybe we can just get the approve the download and we can set up maybe maybe within a week or 2 weeks. Maybe we can set up another session so we can have a lot of question because until right now we are just not see how his play, how his works. So we don't have any question.
Sure. Let me ping the right people and we'll get that done right away. Give me 2 minutes. It's the weekend, so
Thank
maybe
you. Thank you.
Just give me 1 minute. I'm sorry, was there a question? Hey, Mohammed, can you please answer my question in the chat?
The one I just register, or I need it because I didn't register with my personal email. Do you want my personal email?
No,
You want...
just whatever you registered with, just put that in the chat to me.
I'm sorry. What is this? Is what is your ID? See Deepak. I do see. I'm sorry. What is that? I do. I didn't catch your name.
Yeah, my name is Deepak. And
Oh, sure.
no, just I'm logged in as Arcturus Technology. So just respond to that message.
Sure. Did you get it?
Unfortunately not.
Okay. I think I actually it goes to the architecture technology. Can you check there?
Okay, let me check with the other members. Yeah, Mohammed, you have been approved.
Thank you. Let me check. I see I can download it. So, Mr. Devo, I have a question for you. So, I do get the approve, and I do see under the Windows, have you say architect memory analyzers, 64-bit download, and also you have architect tune user download. Which one you should do?
You should just do the, let's do this thing. Let me log in with you. You should just download this, Actros AppliCare.
But it doesn't. But it has only Linux. No, actually, I changed my mind.
No, it's on any platform. It's not just Linux.
Okay, that's okay, sure.
And you want to get the installation guide. Those are the two things you want to begin with.
Sure, I do have to. So
That's it.
So it is a jar file.
Yeah, we are still here, Mohammed, and anyone else, if you need help, let us know. We are waiting for how things are going for you guys. Let us know.
Yeah, I just started the installation. Looks like it's going to take time. I just set up my SQL server and I'm just started installing.
Okay. Yeah, we'll be here for another few minutes, 30 minutes or so. So feel free to ask if you have any questions. I see most of the people are trying to do this offline. That's fine too. The whole objective is for you to get a clear understanding of how to use these labs and then do them at your own pace. It looks like everyone is doing the labs at their own pace. Any questions at this time? Sounds like none. So we'll let you continue. You can always reach us at helpdesk@arcturustech.com. I also put my Skype, my first name, last name in the chat too. So you can reach us if you have any further questions, and we appreciate your time today. Thank you very much. We're going to close if there are no other questions, we're going to close the meeting at this point. Thanks, everyone.